Brett Zachman is a senior VP at Five Rings Financial and the founder of bmen.org. Please give a warm and loving welcome to Brett Zachman.
Thank you, Kate. Beautiful. Well, welcome everybody. It's first of all, I want to thank Laura Menzie for putting on this event, the Radical Love Summit. I mean, this is an incredible opportunity for us to get together and do a deep dive in regards to intimacy. And I'm humbled to be here today in front of you and speaking. But before we get started, I wanted to ask your permission. Do I have your permission to get kind of brutally honest? I mean, we said it should be radical, right? So my goal in the next 50 minutes is to make you perhaps a little bit uncomfortable, but hopefully inspired. So I didn't let Susie really introduce me because I'm so used to introducing myself. So I apologize that I didn't write something much longer. But yeah, my name is Brett Zachman, and I go by my nickname Zach. So if you're wondering how in the world do you get Zach out of Brett Zachman, did anybody ever have an elementary teacher mispronounce your last name? Like every single one, right? Zachman, you gotta get back in the throat with it, very guttural language, German. So when I was a little Zach, I was very shy. So I didn't correct anybody. So I was just Zachman my whole growing up years. So my story kind of looks like that. So when I was growing up, somehow, some way I became a football player. And then I became the quarterback of the football team. So I don't know if anybody in the room has ever hung around jocks, in particular football jocks. Are you kidding me? Zachman is 2 syllables. That's one too many. So I just became Zach. So now you know the nickname story. So in the next 50 minutes, hopefully you'll be comfortable enough, right, that we've gotten to know each other. So I thought, since we're here at the Radical Love Summit and we're talking about intimacy, I thought that, we got to go a little bit deeper. So, by day, I work as a senior vice president, as Susie said, for a company called Five Rings Financial. But that's my day job. That's not why I'm here today. So, ladies, gentlemen in the room, have I looked vice presidential enough I could take off this jacket? You okay with that? It's a little hot under all these lights and stuff. So, Laura's not in here, which is probably a good thing, because since we're talking about intimacy, normally when I give a workshop, I just stop at the jacket. But since we're talking about intimacy in the Radical Love Summit, I thought that maybe we could just get to know each other a little bit better today. So if you're all okay with it, now don't get too alarmed. Don't go run off to Laura and start talking about things like Channing Tatum, or what's his name? Yeah, Channing Tatum. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be too alarmed about. It's not going to get all that ridiculous. But I do want to get a little more comfortable. You guys are welcome to get more comfortable if you'd like to. I'm pretty good at this, but this might take a minute. So the really reason I'm here today is because what I do by night is I've been building a men's organization, an organization called Be Men. And actually it is about men doing more of a deeper dive and getting a little more intimate with themselves, right? Don't get alarmed, ladies. I promise you. Laura said it had to be G-rated. But I've got all these wires. Like, I'm wired for an operation here today. So let's see if I can accomplish this. Rick, this is kind of tough. I just want to let you know. When I did this last night, I didn't have all these wires. So, yeah. Is everybody else as comfortable as I'm feeling now? And I do want to extend a thank you to Kate, because Mr. Rogers, right? So won't you be my neighbor? So I've got to kind of mimic but he had laces, but laces take too long, so I'm not going to do laces, and I'm not really a sweater guy. We call them sweater boys in the finance industry, so I'm not going to put on a sweater, if you're okay with that. All right, so now we're a little more intimate, so let's talk a little bit about my story. I thought I'd just introduce myself in a little more detail, but then we're really going to get down to talking about you and what's going on in your world, because that's why we're all here today. So what is my story? So 14 years ago, I stepped through separation and divorce. I did it, and then 7 of my closest male friends did it too, in about a 2-year time span, right? We all got a diploma, got a degree, found a girl who became our wife, and then we had some kids, and then somewhere between years 7 and 9, we all just went down like dominoes. They actually call it the 7-year itch. It's real, apparently. So here's what I did. I'm an overachiever in all things, as you get to know me. So I did 3 of the top 5 most stressful things to do simultaneously in a single summer. And I did that because I'm a jock, as I already said, who got an econ degree, who never read a psychology book ever, never saw a therapist, never saw a counselor. But here's what you'll find out. If you change your living space, right? I moved out of the home. I bought the lie that I was the problem. So I removed myself as the problem and kept the 2 dogs and the 2 kids and the 2 cars and the corner house and the wife all together in that family unit. So I changed my living space. Then we changed our marriage, right? We became estranged and we separated. And then to top that off, I had decided for 6 months to write a business plan and start my first company. So guess what? Now I'm working alone in an apartment, in a small office, home office. And guess what? I was an extreme extrovert. So this is a psychological experiment in, let's see if Zach loses his mind. Because if you talk to any therapist or counselor, those 3 are on the top 5 most stressful things to do. I did them simultaneously. It was like I was walking into the perfect storm, but I forgot to go to Walmart and buy a rain jacket and an umbrella. But I didn't have any foresight. I didn't know. So here's what saved my life, figuratively. A program called Rebuilding. So up in Boulder, there's a gentleman, Dr. Bruce Fisher, who was a marriage counselor. And he started taking copious notes, and his copious notes became a workbook, and his workbook became a book, and the book became a seminar, and then it became a 10-week intensive. And I attended that. And I needed to, because I had a panic attack. Right? I thought I was having a heart attack at the age of 34 when we signed our divorce papers on a Monday, and then the new relationship that I somehow got into that I shouldn't have been into ended on a Thursday. And then the 3-month relationship intertwined itself with a 10-year marriage, and emotionally 10 years of emotions ripped out of my body. And right, men, we don't have emotions. It's like aliens, you know, when the little guy like tears out of your sternum. So I didn't know what to do with that. So here's what I thought. Everything was set up for me. I mean, I grew up in a great neighborhood. If you haven't noticed already, I happen to be Caucasian. I grew up in middle-income America. I had great teachers. I had great counselors. I had great teachers. I got a good education, and I was not financially destitute. So I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth, but I probably had a pewter one. So I had everything lined up for me, and somehow, some way, that life experience brought me to my knees. So the operative question after I got through the survival stage was, what happens to those other men? Not all men have that. In fact, one of the 7 grew up in 5 Points, happened to be a little bit darker tan than I, happened to be the only son, right? 3 other siblings were daughters. Dad was an alcoholic and absent, and mom became the authoritarian. So he had troubles keeping a job. He started drinking. He didn't want to be a father to his daughter. He was that stereotype. So where do men go? Right? This is the Radical Love Summit, so we can say this, sorry ladies, when the shit hits the fan, where do men go in our adult years? Now, when I was a kid from 6 to 22, I was in groups all the time. Are you kidding me? But somewhere in our 20s, we sort of metamorphosized into this lone wolf, islands in a hurricane. We're going to prove to ourselves and the rest of the world how we can do this all on our own. In fact, that's how I took divorce. The old yeller, right? The dog wanders off into the woods, curls up under a tree, and 1 of 2 things happens. He dies, oops, the end, or he gets well and comes back to the delight of his master. Now, ladies, I know what you're thinking. You know, men are dogs. We're not all dogs, though, okay? So that led me to this idea of be men, right? A community where men can come back together again. Celebrate the gentleman, the warrior, and the hero in all of us. So that's kind of my story, but let's get to why we're here today. So men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? Dr. Gary Chapman pointed this out to us. I mean, we're very different creatures, and Kate was talking about that earlier today. So there's the masculine energy and the feminine energy. So this is some really good stuff. Now, I kind of am, sarcasm is sort of my self-defense mechanism, and has anybody ever noticed that like on the pendulum of masculine and feminine in this country, we're a little off balance? I mean, we did this thing called the feminist movement, and women kind of did a forced march for 100 years towards more of their masculine traits, and have men done a forced march towards their feminine traits? Oh no, we don't know how to do that. Nobody ever taught us. So my joke sometimes, because I meet some very gruff women, my former spouse is sometimes more of a man than I am. So my joke is men are from Mars and women think they have a penis. So, but we're different, right? I mean, wait, are we? Wait, we're all Homo sapiens. Now our biochemistry, all of us, is 60% water. Oh wait, let's go to DNA, genetics. This is where we really get to it, because there's X and Y chromosomes. So we're extremely different, except that outside the X and Y chromosomes, the rest of it is only 98.5% the same. So maybe we should start treating each other like we're together more. Now, I told Laura that I would give a couple of secrets away. Now, I don't know if these are secrets to you all, but they were secrets to me all. Myself, anyway. So here's the first secret of my presentation. So women, it's pretty well known that you have ESP, right? Gentlemen, do we know this? I mean, they have that sixth sense, the 12th guy in the team, right? Here's what I want to let you know, ladies. Men have ESPN. Now, those sound similar, but they are not the same, right? I have conversations with middle-aged women all the time. They come to workshops and they're like, Zach, here's the deal. He should know that. I'm like, really? Why? Well, he should just know what I want. He should just intuit it. I'm like, did you tell him? No, I'm not going to tell him. Why aren't you going to tell him? Well, that would ruin it. I mean, then it's not so romantic. So here's what I got to tell you, ladies. Here's the best thought. Like, take a note, write it out, wrap it around a brick, put a rubber band on that, throw the brick through the picture window, and then guess what healthy men do? They pick up the brick and go, wow, I guess she's trying to get my attention. What does this say? Oh, it says that she likes flowers. Now, any healthy man I've ever met, think this through. Artwork, poems, songs, swimming the English Channel, the Iditarod, climbing K2, barehanded, with no clothes on. Men will do unbelievable things to please a woman and for the love of a woman. If you would just tell us, just let us know what you'd like. We'll be happy to provide. All right, so I want this to be interactive for the next 45 minutes. So what are some words, some words you guys can think of that describe masculinity? Just shout them out.
Linear.
Linear, yeah, absolutely. Linear. Any others? I'll jot these down. Come on. Linear? Penetrative, okay, good, good. What else do we got? Protective. Absolutely. Decisive. Wonderful. Logic. Left brain. Supposedly there's two hemispheres to the brain. I haven't quite confirmed this. So gentlemen, I just want to help you out. I mean, my t-shirt says be men, which would be like be a man. So my sons tell me I'm wrong all the time. I'm like, really? Who said that? They said Google told them that I was wrong. So I Googled last night masculinity. So I have good news, guys. Masculinity, the definition, is possessing the qualities traditionally associated with men. Awesome. Thank you, Google, for that non-definition. No wonder I don't know how to be a man. So here's some words that Google actually gave me. Some masculine words. Some of them are good. Some of them up there, if you look hard enough, maybe not so good. And right now, where are we at in the United States of America? There's this massive debate about masculinity. Masculinity is just is. And then we have to label it toxic or healthy. And too many of us have bought into the lie that masculinity in its entirety is toxic. No, it can be used for good or evil. So ladies, here's another little aha moment, another little secret. So I think with men in relationship, it's sort of like buying a car. So we've all bought cars. You can get a limited warranty, you can get an extended warranty. Maybe if you pay enough money, you can get a lifetime warranty. Here's something about men. You go buy a man, now you can't really do that, or you probably shouldn't, but if a man was a car, he's an as-is purchase. Right? I mean, how many of us know this? What you see is what you get. We're very simple creatures. I mean, here's creationism according to me, according to Zach. There's God, and there's Steve Jobs, or Jobs was God, or one or the other. And then God created man. And he said, yeah, sleep, eat, work, sex. Step and repeat. Basic, 1.0. Then God has a sense of humor. Have you noticed this? I can do way better than that. I'm going to create 2.0. I'm going to create woman. And now we're going to have things like creativity and dynamic or dramatic or theatricality and, oh, let's sprinkle in this thing called emotions. I mean, I think it seems like women are so much more complicated than men. So we're an as-is purchase. Whatever you don't like about us now, it's not going to get better later, right? That little idiosyncrasy where you're like, oh, it's so cute, it's so endearing during the honeymoon stage, and then 3 to 5 years later, you're like, it's just not that cute anymore, Susie. You know, he keeps doing that one thing. And then 30 years later, you're like, if he does that again, I swear to God, I'm going to shoot him in the head. We don't change that much, do we? So, how do we describe femininity? What are some words we might use for femininity?
Perceptive.
Wonderful, perceptive. Any others?
Soft.
Soft. Fantastic. There's a majority of ladies in the room. Sensitive. You don't want to talk? Okay, I'll do all the talking. Okay. Well, here's, you know, in this masculine feminine, right? Think of this, the checks and the balances, and women kind of did this forced march toward their masculine traits. I meet women all the time that, here's my question in my head. What happened to affection? What happened to compassion? What happened to softness, tenderness, kindness, the womb, child bringer, right? The core of femininity is not masculinity. It's these traits that we men don't normally possess, or we kind of have to learn it through a skill set, right? A learned skill set. I mean, if you think through humanity, are you kidding me? The violent tendencies that run inside the masculine traits, without you ladies to balance us out, we'd be dead long ago. We'd be an extinct race. But I have good news, ladies, because I Googled it. It's where all the wealth of knowledge is. Femininity, the quality of being female dash womanliness. Guys, we're done. I mean, right? The oldest cosmic question in the universe, how to figure out a woman, right there. Satisfied, the end. Okay, so, whoop, skipped ahead. So there's some feminine words that Google provided. They're not quite the same as the masculine words. Some of those may resonate. Some of them you might be like, not so much. But that's what Google offered. So since we're at the Radical Love Summit, we really need to get to the heart of this matter. So let's talk about sex, right? I mean, that's what intimacy is, isn't it? It's just all about sex. Now, I thought these were a couple of pretty good images for 2018 to pull up today. I mean, gentlemen, that's us, right? I mean, you look like that, don't you? The title of that photo, by the way, was Zesty Guy. I think if you look close enough, I think that's zesty Italian salad dressing. Ladies, I think you're supposed to open the bottle and then pour it over his head like oil and then just, yeah, absolutely. Here's what I can tell you. I've been an athlete most of my life. I've been working out for like 30 years. I've never looked at myself in the mirror and ever thought I looked like that. Not a day in my life. Are you kidding me? Plus we have this thing called Photoshop. I bet his biceps aren't really quite that bulging, and I bet you he probably only has a 2-pack or a no-pack, but they gave him a 6 to 8-pack. Or let's go, and the beard is probably fake too, the stubble. Or ladies, there we are. I mean, that's every man's dream right there. Have you ever woken up and looked just like that? I actually used to work in my early 20s for an ad agency for Coors Brewing Company. I watched this happen, right? We've all seen the Photoshop video, 3 to 4 minutes of the woman who's not a woman anymore because she's fantasy. She started out this way, but then we had a little curve in the hip, and then we tightened in the waist a little bit, and these got a little bit larger, and oh, that blemish on the cheek, that's gone, right? They called it Cytex. So if you're falling into that trap, I'm not sure this is going to work out for you. I mean, most of us don't look like that. Now, here's another little secret. Anybody heard of oxytocin? I hadn't until like my mid-30s. Really well-educated man, kind of stupid, really dumb about some of the most important things in our adulting lives. Here's what I call oxytocin. Layman's terms, the love drug. It's a bonding agent. Women know all about it because of childbirth. For 9 months, when they carry a little person inside of them, oxytocin is the hormone. It's a bonding agent. It's a bonding hormone that creates this lifelong bond that you can't step between. Guess what else? It's a bonding hormone released by the pituitary gland during orgasm. Ooh. You know why I needed to learn that? What you see when you climax or orgasm is what you attach yourself to biochemically. I'll get back to that here in a minute. That can be problematic. So I want to play a little game. We don't want to be too serious today, right? I mean, I tried to fun it up with a little Mr. Rogers 2018. So I called this workshop a few years back, 6, 7 years ago. It was in my home in Belmar. I called it Dating, Mating, and Relating. So men, let's be chivalrous, plus I learned the 30-second rule. So you guys need a few moments to process. So ladies, let's start with you. So ladies, here's the question. What are the top 5 things men most want in a romantic partnership or relationship?
Sexual availability.
Sex. Of course. Sex and more sex, Zach.
Be appreciated.
Okay. Be appreciated.
Common goals.
Sex. Goals. I'm writing this down for us, guys. Sex, goals.
Feeling of connection.
Connection.
This is for men.
Yes, what do you think men want? You know what you want.
They want freedom.
Freedom! Oh, sorry, that was my Mel Gibson rendition. Absolutely.
It's snarky because they relationships by text only.
We want a text, of course.
No, just a relationship.
Oh,
that's
distant
sex.
relationship. Okay, gentlemen, let's grade them. How did they do? We want sex, goals, connection, freedom.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah?
Sure.
And you know what? Here's what's interesting. When I've given workshops and had plenty of the real men in the room, and almost always the number one answer by every woman in the room is sex, and almost always there's at least one gentleman in the room who stands up and says, if I want sex, there's this thing called prostitution. I can go buy that. I can buy it on a screen. I can buy it in real. What I really want is love. See, we have these stereotypes. Okay, so gentlemen, I gave you enough time to process. You're up. What are the top 5 things women most want in a romantic relationship?
To be heard.
Oh, I have no idea why I'm laughing about listening. Okay, yes, we should listen. Wait, gentlemen, heard? Come on, there's got to be a few others, right?
To do what they say.
Do what they say. Awesome. So I went to a men's workshop in actually kind of just doing some review for B-Men. I'm not going to name it because here's what's kind of interesting about it. One of the things the gentleman said to 500 men in the room, kind of envisioned in 72 hours like Tony Robbins meets Navy SEAL Team 6. I mean, I'm a pretty fit guy. I've never seen so many men in my life who had ZZ Top beards, tribal tattoos down their shoulders, and they could probably pick me up 3 times over. And the gentleman at the top of the room on the stage that day said, men, what you really need to realize is that all women somewhere deep inside just want an ATM. What do you think, lady? Thank you, ladies, for that response. Wow. Could we get any deeper than that? That's like the silver lining on the lottery ticket.
Security.
Okay, so ladies, how did we do? Security, heard, do what they say, ATM.
Skip the ATM.
Skip. Thank you.
But it depends on the era. I grew up with the one that's
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Absolutely. 1 or 2 generations ago, men provided, as Kate talked about, and women did this thing that none of us thought was valuable, called raise children, run a home, do the daycare, do the laundry, and now they've evaluated that's worth like $100,000 a year. Whoops. Okay, so we need to get to know one another. You might know yourself, but get to know one another. Then it'll be more successful. So let's step into this. Let's get into the heart of the matter. Because now what we've got to do is we've got to talk about intimacy. And the layman's terms from that I've learned in my personal growth, self-development journey over the last 12 years is into me see. And there's that quote. Isn't that great? Intimacy is not purely physical. It's the act of connecting so deeply that you can see into another's soul. We've all heard this cliche, right? The eyes are the window to the soul. Ever been to a workshop of any type? Right? And not just Boulder, right? I always love to pick on the Republic of Boulder where you ohm your way into, the ethereal parts. Thank you, Miss Cuddlist, for laughing at that. I love Boulder. I have nothing against Boulder. It's just, that's the stereotype. They have you sit, right? And you sit in quiet. And what do? Nothing. And you look at each other. dead in the eyes. Because then you can start to feel someone's vibration, you can start to feel somebody's energy, and you start to connect. So what's your paradigm? Now, how do men usually come to intimacy? Let's be honest. Right here, through our eyes, but not the windows to our soul, visually. Why do you think everything from zesty Italian salad dressing to you name it has a half-naked woman in front of it? Because they know us. They know that we come traditionally to intimacy visually. Women, how do you usually come to intimacy? Right, emotionally. So you come from here, and we're coming from here, and then we wonder why we're like two trains passing in the night. So here's my paradigm, because what we want to do is shift your paradigm. Divorce is the beginning. That was stated very intentionally. It's an ending only if you see it as an ending. Perhaps it's a beginning. Perhaps it's something where you rise out of the ashes and become a whole new you. When I got divorced, here's what I did. Oh, she's to blame. Of course, look at all those silly things she does, and it just annoys the crap out of me. She's got all these frailties and problems, and so I was doing this, wasn't I? I'm pointing the finger, but when you point the finger, 3 fingers point back at you. So, yeah, we have to change our paradigm and look inside ourselves. Now, how many of you heard this? Falling into love. We've all heard that cliche, haven't we? Has anyone actually ever done that, like fallen off this stage into love? Or there you are, you're walking down the sidewalk and then, oh man, what was that? Oh, that's love. It kind of got all over me, like goop and stuff. No, love is a choice. Absolutely, it's a choice. It's not something that just happens to you. Now, let's peel the onion on Into Me See. One of my virtual mentors is Darren Hardy. Great guy. And I've been teaching my sons this, who are now 17 and a half and 16. That's why my beard is a little more gray and I've got a little wrinkle cred, right? So there's 3 levels of people: conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. So here's the good part. Our conscious mind. There you are. Your higher brain functions. And those might be characteristics like what you read there: acceptance, contentment, love, peace. May the force be with you. Because here's the bad news. They estimate that we're only in our higher brain about 2% of the time. Higher consciousness is your higher self, transcendental reality, or God. The concept was significantly developed in German idealism and a central notion in contemporary popular spirituality. And that's where we're headed next. Now, go a layer deeper in the bad. Subconscious. This is your inner automaton. I call them submarines, right? They run deep and they run silent. They're your default mechanisms. Those are mine. You know how I found those? The way most men do. After I blamed her and then I studied up on all her terrible traits, well, guess what? That train came back into the hub. It was sort of like a boomerang. And then I turned around and it hit me right in the back of the head. Because here's what I figured out. Wait a minute. I'm codependent. I'm not just a problem solver. I'm a fixer-rescuer. Now, fixer-rescuer sounds awesome in books and CDs and tapes and all that stuff. Disney, it's not so good in real life. Because it created this modus operandi I had where I attracted the wounded dove. You know, the savior complex. I needed to be here to protect my fragile little boy ego, and she needed to be here because I'm going to save her. No. Passive aggressive, people pleaser, right? Always looking for my father's approval. Here's a little secret for you guys. You are enough. You are enough. You were born, that's it. Nothing else needs to happen. Now, they call it the father wound in men's work, that your earthly father will impart a wound. It could be subtle or it could cut you to the quick because we're looking for his approval. We're praying for it. Most men go to their graves still thinking, I wish I could get his approval. I call this the comfortable pair of jeans, right? Anybody got those comfortable pair of jeans? Because when we think about divorce, we're lazy with math. This is what we say, 50%, Zach. Why am I going to get married? I'm just going to get divorced. 50% of people get divorced. No. Peel the onion, 3 layers deep. First marriages fail at a 38% rate. Second marriages fail at a 54% rate. Third marriages, voila, 67%. And a stat I haven't yet corroborated, men tend to remarry in 7 months and women in 7 years. Now, how in the world could they do that in 7 months? That's because part 2 of the book has already started before part 1 is over. And here's what I think about men. The simpler creatures, right? Life is like a child's puzzle. So there's 6 or 8 pieces in that puzzle, and you remove a partner or a spouse, that's either the centerpiece or a cornerstone. And what do problem solver men do? Oh my God, that puzzle's broken. I'm going to fix it. Should I fix it 30 years from now, 3 years from now, 30 minutes from now, or 3 days ago? Right? You following me? The very next person, boom, grab, puzzle piece, put it in. Wow, look at that. It doesn't quite fit. Hey, excuse me for a minute. You know what I'm doing, right? I'm just going to mash that piece in there until it fits right. So there's something for us, guys, right? Instead of looking externally, look internally. Know that you're part of the problem and create a better you. So here's the bad part about subconscious. Of or concerning the part of the mind of which one is not fully aware, but which influences one's actions and feelings. Oh. Now, I hate to do it, but there's the third layer, the ugly, the unconscious. And here's what Darren Hardy shares with us. It's your monkey brain. And here's the good news. It controls you about 83% of the time. Yeah. You know what the monkey brain wants? Just 2 things. This is Psychology 101. Most of us as adults, we want to be comfortable and we want to be entertained. Now, how do you grow if you're comfortable and entertained? You don't. So what's your vice? Many times our comfort or our entertainment comes from a vice, and that vice might be shaming. So here's what I've found out in 12 years of this work. Vulnerability is strength. What? No. I was an athlete. Vulnerability is weakness. You never show vulnerability. Right, gentlemen? It's Darwinism. Survival of the fittest. You're in a football field, a basketball court, in a boardroom, even running a nonprofit. You do not show anybody your vulnerability ever. That's untrue. Thank you. That's untrue. So I want to share you a little of my vulnerability. I do not have an addictive mentality at all. I don't need alcohol. I don't need drugs. I never learned how to smoke, so that whole new thing that we legalized, don't know anything about it. No workaholism, nothing. But I've been a single divorced man for 14 years, and I've never had a live-in girlfriend, and I grew up Lutheran, which is really close to the epicenter of shame-based religion, and they imparted one thing to me as I was a wee guy. Sex is sin, don't do it. Oh, do it, but don't like it. And do it just to procreate. So I'm 47 years old now, and I still struggle with my sexuality. And the shameful thing for me that I wouldn't want to admit to you or anybody on the planet is I have filled the void of intimacy and companionship and affection and all those wonderful things visually through online sexual chat rooms, soft pornography. And that's a slippery slope. Remember what we talked about with oxytocin? What you look at is what you bond to. And then it's kind of like Tostitos, and you can't just stop at one. And by the way, I already admitted this to Kianga earlier this morning. I practice at everything until I'm really damn good at it. So if I'm going to treat my body like a sexual amusement park, I'm not just going to do it for 3 minutes while I stare at the ceiling and clerically be done. No way. I'm going to go at it for like 3 hours. So here's the ugly, unconscious, the part of mind that is inaccessible to the conscious mind but that affects behavior and emotions. So for men, what I've been talking about for years is awareness and action. Here's what divorce did. It was like open heart surgery. It ripped me open, and I had to become aware. I didn't want to. I mean, we're kind of like bulls in a china shop. Have you noticed this, ladies, about us? We just charge through life, and things are crashing and breaking and shattering, and we get kind of cut up, and it looks really good in Die Hard and other movies like that. And if you happen to be within the near vicinity, well, just get prepared, because you're probably going to the hospital too. Well, that's not a very good way to live. Now, awareness to me is like Pandora's box. Once it's opened, crap, you can't shut it. It opened 14 years ago for me, and I still can't get it shut. But if we stop at awareness, again, we're just going to have to go up to Boulder, right? Because that's kind of kumbaya, sit in circle, oming. Men, right? I heard a pastor friend say, we're not human doings, we're human beings. But if we stop with awareness, man, we got to turn that coin over into action. What are we prepared to do with our newfound awareness? Well, here would be my suggestion. Uh-oh. Oh, good. I thought I skipped. We didn't have a slide. Spirituality. Now, for me, I told you that I'm Christian. And a lot of people are like, oh, okay, so he's at a pulpit. It doesn't look like a lectern. Here we go. No. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Kind of gets into that human doings versus human beings. So let's dispel a myth about intimacy and spirituality. Anybody ever heard this term? Well, Zach, I'm a hopeless romantic. It seems like ladies love this one. And guys, if we're a little softer, a little more effeminate, we hang our hats on that one too. Well, I have no problem with the romance part, but I got a little problem with that first word, right? I got a liberal arts education. Well, I got an economics degree from a liberal arts college. So words matter. Hopeless, where the people have no hope, you know what happens to them? They die, figuratively or literally. So we need to dispel that myth. How about there's purpose and intent in everything that we do? I believe in providence. Every single person you see, every single person you meet, you were supposed to be in that situation, you were supposed to meet that person. But now we got to get back to clarity, and clarity is awareness. Do we have the awareness as human beings to figure out, why am I meeting this person? What's supposed to happen here? I've started thinking, in regards to relationship, this. Maybe it's not about what I can get. Maybe it's more about what I should give. Instead of helping myself, I should be helping others. So we're kind of nearing the end of my time with you today. So I thought I'd put a little wrap on this. So in moving through this journey, right, intimacy is a spiritual journey. My father, when I was young, he liked to talk in clichés and metaphors, and he told me that life was like a train ride. And if you spent the whole train ride just anticipating the destination, guess what? You lost out on all the stops along the way. You were never present for anything. So Mike Wilk is my mentor at our financial company, and I thought this was unbelievable. You don't attract who you want. You attract who you are. What if you don't know who you are? Because you never did into me see. It's real easy for me to look out at all of you and start evaluating all your highlights and your lowlights and pontificating and giving you advice on what to do with your lives. You know what's way harder? Take that mirror and turn it on self. And then go deep if you dare. And here's what I'm thinking more and more. To find the one, that true partner, that life partner. I've been married once. I've never had a life partner. You need to become the one. And so when I meet new people, right, in a business setting or a Christian setting or nonprofit or politics or wherever, or a summit like this, I ask them, what's your life's passion? Do you know how many people give me a quizzical look on their face? One, nobody's ever asked them that question. Two, they don't have an answer. Now, luckily, at 40 years of life, I found mine. So my life's passion is this: be men, bringing men together again, to ask this seemingly simple question of what is it to be a man in 2018? And now Be Men started as sort of like a divorced men's support group, but now it's more evolving into just a men's organization, and now we're evolving into this thing called the masculine movement, and I've decided I'm going to live to 100, and before I die, I'd like to build the first ever Be Men Institute. Not a college, not a church, but a place of knowledge and learning, where men serve other men to build better men. Now that's a pretty vulnerable thing for me, because I don't know how the hell I'm going to accomplish it. It scares me. It scares the pants. Oh, wait, I already took off my pants. No, it scared these pants right off me. Because how can I get up in front of any guy and say, I've got this all together? I've got nothing together. I can't stand at a lectern and say, follow me, guys, I know everything. No, it's more like I'm in the Pepsi Center, section 120, row J, seat 10. I look left and I look right and I'm like, I have no clue. You guys want to do this? Should we take this on? But then how are you choosing to share your passion? Maybe you've answered the question. Now you know what your passion is. Do you have the mettle? Do you have the courage to go after it? So those are some of the ways that you can connect with my passion. We have layers. We have a public-facing website. We've got a blog now. We've got a Twitter feed. These are all these important things. There's an inner layer, though, a middle layer, an online Facebook community. Over 400 members, 75% are men, and guess what? 25% are ladies. That's weird. Why would you invite women into that, Zach? Here's why. Ladies, do you know men I don't know? Do you know men I'll never know? I've never met a woman. Well, actually, I did meet one, but we won't tell that story. In 10 years of building this, I've only met one woman who, when I told a woman about Be Men, didn't immediately start doing backflips and cartwheels and going, oh my gosh. And then they did this, right? They pinched me like your grandma does. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, are you for real? I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never met a guy that wants to help men become better men. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't like spoofing me or I was dreaming or something. Now men, you know how we are. I start telling men about this, they're like, all right, Zach, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to go deep, and we're going to get intimate, and we're going to talk about stuff that, you know, the real shit, and you're going to get me up on this stage, and you expect me to, like, just talk about that in front of men I don't know? I'm not doing that. I don't even know you, right? We resist. Our ego resists that massively. And so this year, I'm working on a book, Divorce is the Beginning, a survival guide for men. So Susie in the back, she's got a couple of ways for us to stay connected. So she's going to hand out a postcard for Be Men with our code of values. She's going to hand out my business card. So if you'd like to stay connected, we hope you will. And then I've already been an author a couple of times, yeah, in terms of being a submitting author to a couple of men's anthology books. So we've got a book here today about transformational moments in men's lives. There's 40 incredible stories, including mine. And if you're impassioned or you think that book could help out a man, or even you women in your life, we're selling those for $20. It just goes all back to the nonprofit. So I always finish my conversations with my favorite quote. And the quote goes something like this: to have courage is to have heart, but to encourage is to give heart. And so here's the interesting thing that I can tell you that I've been learning more and more in the last dozen years. By being on this stage today, I had the supreme pleasure of looking into the eyes, the souls of all of you, and guess what I get to do? I walk out of here today, and each of you, whether you knew it or not, in the last 50 minutes, you gave me a little piece of your heart to encourage me. This is not that easy to do. And sometimes, in fact, lots of times, I've wanted to quit. And here's what I hope. If anything that I said today resonated with a big part of you or even a little part of you, then maybe you take away the gift that you took a little piece of my heart, right? And you get to walk out of here and you're encouraged to take that next step, the next first step of the 10,000-mile journey that you're on. So thank you so much for your time today.